Good evening and welcome to the June meeting of the Salem Area Mass Transit Board. This evening we have a full agenda. We just had a reception for our retiring board members, and we will have announcements. We do not have a presentation, but we'll have a period of public comment. We'll have our budget hearing for our 2019-2020 approved budget. We will have our consent calendar, which has various minutes and other activities, and then we'll have several action items. We authorize a contract with PetroCard, Inc. to supply fuel card services for Cherriots contracted service vehicles. We have to authorize contract with Superior Tire for vehicle tire purchases, to authorize an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Salem for police services, to authorize contract with Cascade Landscape Management to provide landscape management services, and we may have one other item on the agenda, and then we have reports, and that will include our meeting. So with that, I will convene the meeting, since we called it to order earlier, and asked Director Kelley to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'll call on our, let's see, we don't have a safety moment on here.
No.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any changes or adjustments to the agenda? And we have one item, item O, which we will move up to make into action item J5, if that's okay with the rest of the board. And with that, I'll ask our clerk to take attendance, and this is the time for public comment. And has anybody signed up for public comment? Is there anyone in the audience that has a request? Well, we have. Okay, we have Mark Connect. And Mark, you have 3 minutes.
As I said earlier, I want to thank, some of you may be coming a little bit later, but I want to thank all the board members and the outgoing board members and the incoming board members. And I'm on the advisory citizens board for Cherriots, and I look forward to working for the new with the new board members. And then also, I've been looking at the budget now. I'll have to come up to the office and talk to somebody.
Okay, we're not taking comment. We'll have another period for budget comments. Thank you. Is there anyone else in attendance that would like to comment at this time? If not, we'll close the public comments, and we will open our budget hearing, and I'll call on our general manager to
Thank you, Son. I'd like to ask the Budget Committee Chair, Hirsch Sangster, to please present the staff report.
I think you all have a copy of my comments. President Krebs and members of the board, as the chair of the Budget Committee for the Salem Area Mass Transit District, I am very, very pleased to present with you an approved budget for the fiscal year 2019 to 2020 with the Budget Committee's recommendation to adopt the budget. Thanks to both the elected members and the appointed citizen members of the Budget Committee for their service. The attention to detail and insight of all the members made the process productive and very efficient. I'd also like to thank General Manager Alan Pollock, and his great and hardworking staff. The fiscal year 2020 budget for the district includes appropriated funds of $59.4 million and unappropriated and reserved funds at $28.5 million for a total of $87.9 million. The district's general fund budget at $32.7 million includes property tax revenues, fare, and various state and federal grant sources. A new resource, the State Transportation Improvement Fund, STIF, will allow the expansion of service this fiscal year. The general fund provides 195,681 annual vehicle revenue hours. Wow. The transportation program budget at $10.3 million includes state, federal, and grant funds and local contribution from the general fund as required by the federal law. Resources in the transportation program fund are expected to increase by 60.5% over the current budget. STIF funding will help finance this expansion of paratransit and regional services. The Transportation Program Fund pays for services provided by the district that are outside the scope of the Cherriots fixed route service. These services include Cherriots paratransit service, regional service, the Cherriots call center, trip choice, transportation program coordination, State also provide for $16.4 million for capital projects fund. Major projects proposed for 2020 include vehicle replacement in the fixed route, paratransit, regional, and shop and ride fleets. It also provides for a comprehensive ITS solution for the district's buses, completion of the intersection and signalization at the Kaiser Transit, go Kaiser, and for upgrades and replacements of the Del Webb property and equipment. The fiscal year 2020 budget allows the district to expand existing levels of service and has the resources to attract and maintain a quality workforce while the district collaborates with federal, state, and local partners to identify funding to support public transit and infrastructure and work towards more effective and efficient public transit. It was my pleasure chairing the Budget Committee. Thank you for your commitment and hard work. And my final comments is I was on the board from 2006 to 2009, and at that time the board had to make some serious and hard decisions about cutting services, eliminating Saturday service, what I and all the board members did not want to happen. And I know the outgoing members, especially Jerry and Marcia, have fought hard to get that Saturday service back. And that's one reason I stayed connected with transit and helping with the Budget Committee, hoping this would come back. So the dream has come true, and I thank you all for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do the directors have any questions? Thank you. We thank you and the other committee members not sitting at this table that helped us with this budget, because without that hard work, this wouldn't have been accomplished.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the question now, before we accept public testimony, is shall the board adopt resolution 2019-05 for the adoption of the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget, making appropriations and imposing and categorizing taxes. And with that, we are open for public comment, and Mark Connect has signed up to testify, and now you can talk about the budget.
I have one question here on page BD where it says, permanent rate tax increase and subject to general government limitation. What would happen in, that one? Yes, my name is Mark Knecht, and I reside over at, on 25th, 200 State Street here in Salem. What would happen, couple questions here. Subject to general government limitations, permanent rate tax, but what would happen if we would have, if the taxpayers, this community, we would have to go, if they would have to ask for some more taxes? What would happen in that event?
Would you like to answer that?
Okay, I'll try to answer your question because I'm not quite sure what it is. So I think, how do we get more taxes?
Yeah, well,
More revenue?
I mean, with all this other new revenue coming in from when the governor signed the
Right.
transportation package and stuff. But the question that I have, what is going to happen if we would have, if you went and asked for some more taxes, what would happen in this incident?
Sure. So I think that what you're seeing there, so we have the permanent tax rate of 76 cents per thousand.
Okay.
What we would have to do is like what we tried several times before is go out for an operating levy. And we could have a vote for additional revenue.
I guess outside of that, I don't have any other questions, and let's see, I just barely looked at this, so, but at any rate, I think it's all in order, and I thank the Budget Committee for working hard, and so I'm looking forward to we've got some exciting times coming ahead for Cherriots.
Yes, we do. It's over a decade in coming, too.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to testify at this time? If not, we will close the public hearing, and it's time for deliberation. Director Kelley?
Did you move it already?
No?
No.
I move that the board adopt resolution 2019-05 to adopt the fiscal year 2019-20 budget, making appropriations and imposing and categorizing taxes. And I believe that we're supposed to say the amount in that motion, are we not?
No. I don't believe so.
I'll second that.
Been moved to second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion carries unanimously. And the next item is our consent calendar.
Move approval of the consent calendar.
Second. Moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And so we'll move on to action item J1, authorize contract with PetroCard, Inc. to supply fuel card services for Cherriots contracted service vehicles. I'll call on the general manager to introduce that topic.
Thank you. So Maintenance Manager Greg Thompson, present the staff report.
President Krebs, members of the board, good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight, I am asking that the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with PetroCard, Inc. for fuel card services for the purchase of fuel for the contracted services vehicles for a 2-year base contract for a not to exceed amount of $1,300,000. SAMTD's contracted service vehicles require separate fueling services to provide fuel for each vehicle. There is currently no capacity for fueling these vehicles at the SAMTD maintenance facility. To meet the fueling needs for the Cherriots lift of 43 vehicles, the Cherriots Regional with 12 vehicles, and the Cherriots Shop and Ride service of 5 vehicles, SAMTD has utilized fueling card lock services. Fuel cards allow the contractor the ability to fuel vehicles at all Pacific Pride fueling stations in the area through the use of fueling cards. Cherriots lift vehicles use approximately 153,000 gallons of gasoline annually. Cherriots regional vehicles use approximately 65,800 gallons of a combination of gasoline and diesel. And the Cherriots Shop and Ride uses approximately 6,200 gallons of gasoline annually. This contract was procured under SAMTD procurement procedures utilizing State of Oregon Price Agreement number 8519. The State of Oregon, the Department of Administrative Services, issued a formal competitive request for proposals for the fuel card lock services. Multiple proposers responded to the DAS solicitation, and the price agreement was awarded to two proposers, Seco Inc. and PetroCard Inc. Our incumbent provider, Mark Nelson Oil Products, was not awarded a state price agreement designation, so they were not considered in this solicitation. SAMTD formally solicited the two successful providers for the purchase agreement for dealer margin by location for the stations utilized by SAMTD. PetroCard Inc. was evaluated as a successful supplier based on submitting the lowest costs and the largest availability of fueling stations throughout the area. PetroCard submitted a markup of 3.5 cents per gallon. The markup difference was a little over 4 cents a gallon lower than the Seco submission. I'm sorry, 40 cents lower. The table in your packet shows the estimated costs based on the fuel consumptions by service for the next 2 years and the costs associated with those. Do you want me to read through those? No? Okay.
Do you want to?
I think
No.
we can see them.
Okay. The financial impact is that the funding for the first year of this contract is included in the fiscal year 20 budget. Year 2 will be included in the fiscal year 21 budget, and fuel is allocated separately for each different service. Staff recommends the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with PetroCard Inc. for fuel card services for the purchases of fuel for the contracted services vehicles for a 2-year base contract for a not to exceed amount of $1,300,000.
Any questions? Do we have a motion? Director Evans?
I move the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with PetroCard Incorporated for fuel card services for the purchase of fuel for contracted services vehicles for a 2-year base contract for a not to exceed amount of $1,300,000.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any discussion? Director Lincoln?
Yeah, I just wondered, this is a base amount, so does that exclude like taxes?
That's all encompassing of all of the costs.
Everything?
Yes.
So they're guaranteeing it, they're taking into consideration that gas tax increase over
Yeah,
the next
and
few
that's why
years.
it's the 2 years it's hard to get fuel providers to lock in futures rates for
Right.
the
Okay,
volatility of the market.
okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Oh, you have a question?
I just want to say thank you, Greg. We've appreciated working with you over the years.
Well, thank you as well, Mr. Director Thompson.
So, other comments? So,
Sorry.
we're ready for the question. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. So, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next item, which is to authorize a contract with Superior Tire for vehicle tire purchases.
So I'll ask Greg Thompson to please come forward.
Hello again.
Hello again.
Here I am. We're gonna.
Now I know why you have a tie on tonight.
Yes, you're gonna see me a couple times tonight. It's a busy evening. So tonight on item J2, we're asking that the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Superior Tire Services for the purchase of tires for all Cherriots owned vehicles for a term of two base year and 3 one-year options for not to exceed total contract amount of $830,250. So the background is SAMTD has partnered with TriMet and Lane Transit District to complete a joint tire procurement. The solicitation for the 3 agencies was advertised locally and nationally, and Superior Tire Services of Salem, Oregon was deemed responsive to the solicitation. This meant that they could provide the majority of the tire sizes and specifications requested through the solicitation. SAMTD is awarding this contract to Superior Tire Services under a competitive solicitation process with a single bid response. Competition for this solicitation was determined to be adequate based on Federal Transit Administration guidelines. Scope and specifications were found not overly restrictive, and the reason for few responses were not within the combined agencies of the 3, SAMTD, Lane Transit, and TriMet's control. Pricing was compared for reasonableness against current published list prices, SAMTD's historical expenditures, and the expenditures of other agencies. The price comparison and the price quote from Superior was deemed to be reasonable. The district then performed an analysis on a purchase program versus a leasing program and determined that purchasing tires would allow for more control over inventory and have a potential cost savings. The contract with Superior Tire Services will be for a 2-year term with the option of 3 one-year extension periods to commence on July 1st, 2019. SAMTD may unilaterally exercise the option to terminate the contract for convenience if necessary for any reason during the contract period. The table contained within your packet reflects the contract years on an annual basis and a small contingency for any unknown price escalations with the total of $830,250. Funding for 1 year of this proposed contract is included in the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget and will be included in all subsequent budget years. Staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Superior Tire Services for the purchase of tires for all Cherriots owned vehicles for a term of 2 base years and 3 one-year options for not to exceed contract amount of $830,250.
Any questions or comments from,
I'll have a comment after you make after somebody makes a motion.
okay, Director Lincoln?
I just have a comment. If anyone hasn't seen how they store tires at the Del Webb facility, it's fascinating because it's a huge structure where the tires are up and they rotate around. So if you ever get a chance, especially the new board members, if you get a chance to go out and see that, it's pretty amazing. It holds a lot of tires that you can just get them right down at your level when you want to pull them off.
I was going to wait until after a motion was made, but I'll make a comment. One of my first board meetings in 1989, we had to authorize the general manager to purchase tires. He had a limit of $500 without coming to the board. And so we had to authorize purchase of tires. And I know that they were not as expensive as they are now, but we shortly changed the authorization amount to bump it up a little bit so that the board didn't have to authorize the purchase of tires. How time flies.
Any other comments? Do we have a motion? Director Lincoln?
I move that the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Superior Tire Services for the purchase of tires for all Cherriots owned vehicles for a term of 2 base years and 3 one-year options for a not to exceed total contract amount of an amount not to exceed $830,250.
Second.
Has been moved and second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same, opposed, same sign. And motion carries. And we'll move on to the next item.
Thank you.
And thank you. You don't
Thanks,
get to
Greg.
talk on this one. Authorize intergovernmental agreement with the City of Salem for police services.
So I'll ask Karen Garcia, our Security and Emergency Management Manager, to present the staff report.
Thank you, Alan. Good evening, President Krebs and members of the board. Tonight, I'm asking the board to authorize the general manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Salem for police services at the Downtown Transit Center at Courthouse Square for a not-to-exceed amount of $323,606. To deliver a world-class customer experience for our employees, riders, and members of the public, the district monitors conduct on board our buses and our property. We accomplish this in part through our relationship with the City of Salem Police Department, where they have provided direct access through on-call services to us during specified times of the day. We have benefited from an IGA with the police department for several years, and the agreement is made under the authority of ORS 190.010. It's in both parties' best interest to assure adequate law enforcement in the downtown area, to include at the transit center. The uniformed police officers provide an extraordinary level of support to the district and really help us enhance the safety presence and the security presence at the transit center. The term of this agreement with the police department is for the next 2 fiscal years, so it'll begin July 1 of 2019 and extend through June 30th of 2021. Initially, the on-call services will be as they are today, with a no fewer than 45 hours per week. However, September 1st, that will increase to a period of no fewer than 54 hours per week. So the increase is to be with Saturday service. The enhancement of Saturday service will also have the addition of the security team and the police department on-call service. The mutually agreed upon schedule between the city and the district will allow for us to have direct cell phone access to an officer during the established times. The partnership between district staff, our private security provider, and the city police department help us deliver on our mission of safety through that police presence. So for the financial impact, funding for year 1 is included in the Operations Division, Security and Emergency Management Department general budget. And of course, next year will include the budgeted amount for the fiscal year 2021 period. Staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Salem for police services for the Downtown Transit Center for a not-to-exceed amount of $323,606. Are there any questions?
No questions? Do we have a motion? Director Lincoln? Director Thompson?
We're fighting over him here.
Jerry's turn.
I move that the board authorize the general manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Salem for police services for the Downtown Transit Center for a not-to-exceed amount of $323,606.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Director Kelley.
One of the things that'll be interesting is if you match our budget with the City of Salem budget, you'll probably just find this line item under other governmental agreements. They normally don't call us out, although we do call out the fact that we're doing an intergovernmental contract with them.
Director Thompson?
Yeah, you may be aware, but the downtown bicycle team is getting new bicycles thanks to the Salem Police Foundation. And we're currently fundraising for, I think we've got 3 or 4 paid for, and we're fundraising for the next 4.
Any other comments? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank
Thank you very much. And our next item on there is authorized contract with Cascade Landscape Management Incorporated to provide landscape management services.
Come on
And
down.
look who's back.
It's been a while.
Good evening again. So, item J4 is asking that the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Cascade Landscape Management for landscape maintenance services for an amount not to exceed $122,652. SAMPD contracts landscaping services for 3 locations that include the Del Webb Administration Building, the Market Street Park and Ride, and the Kaiser Transit Center. Hiring landscape companies that have the expertise in proper plant, grass, tree, and shrub care is a key element in ensuring district properties are maintained to the highest standard. Each of the 3 locations has unique demands and vastly different servicing requirements. The Market Street Park and Ride consists primarily of shrubbery that is kept to a minimum height for safety and security. There is also a small lawn which requires mowing and trimming. The Del Webb Administration Building consists of a mixture of shrubs, trees, and ground covers, and the Kaiser Transit Center contains a wide array of plantings as well as a specialty lawn. Included in the landscaping contract are provisions for irrigation maintenance and any needed repairs. On March 13th, 2019, a request for proposals was issued for landscape maintenance services. A pre-proposal conference was held on March 29th, 2019, allowing prospective bidders to view the properties and better understand the scope of work. The RFP closed on April 19th, and 4 responsive bids were received. An evaluation team reviewed the responses and scored Cascade Landscape Management Incorporated as the lowest cost and most responsive to the solicitation. Cascade Landscape Management is currently the incumbent and has performed superior work over the last 5 years. The contract with Cascade Landscape Management is a 2-year base contract with 3 one-year options, and the cost breakdown for each year is reflected in the table below, which is included in your packets. Funding, the financial impact of this is the funding for the first year of this contract is included in the fiscal year 20 budget. Year 2 will be included in the fiscal year 21 budget. The staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Cascade Landscape Management for landscaping maintenance services for an amount not to exceed $122,652.
Thank you. Director Kelley, do you have?
I move the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Cascade Landscape Management, Inc. for landscaping maintenance services for an amount not to exceed $122,652.
Second.
And for those not in the audience or having the paperwork, that's for the total of the 5 years.
We had a second to that?
Yes.
Okay, Director Evans seconded. Any other comments or questions? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. We have one more item, action item, and that is, we're moving up item O to J5, and that is a potential action taken based on our recent executive session where we evaluated the general manager's performance for the year. And would someone like to, Director Thompson, would you like to
Sure.
comment
Comment?
or make a motion?
Make a motion, okay. Well, as part of the general manager's evaluation each year, we go into executive session and we make some decision. We don't make a decision there, but we make some recommendations to consider. And this year we have, do we actually say the amount? 8. Yeah, okay. I move that the board approve a bonus to General Manager Pollock of $8,000 for this year.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Might comment that this is a performance bonus, and it's based on the fact that this year our general manager has had several notable accomplishments, including working with the legislature over the last 2 years to get funding so that we can finally have Saturday and evening and other services that this city so desperately needs, but there have been other things taking place that of merit, and I'll let the other board members comment on this too. Director Thompson.
And then, you may not know, but he is involved in the in APTA, which is the American Public Transportation or Transportation Association, on the executive committee, and he has been instrumental in helping them move forward and get some national legislation that's going to help us.
Director Lincoln.
Alan's also very involved in local and state transportation issues and policy making, and I think that made a big difference in how smoothly our STIF application went. And also, I think we have seen improved relationships with the city, and due to Alan's involvement. So, a lot of influence, not just impacting Cherriots, but impacting transportation statewide, public transportation.
Yes, Director Thompson.
Can I say one other thing? To the new board members that are in the audience, he's a gem. You want to keep him.
Did you want to say anything?
I'm good.
One of the things is that all board members are sent a written evaluation, and now Alan does a self-evaluation, and then we work on that through the executive session to sort of get some general ideas and then make decisions. I've been through many of these, and it's been a pleasure to work with Alan. He not only does things within the professional area of transit, but he served on the garden board and just stepped off the Salem City Club board, having been president for 1 year?
2 years.
President for 2 years, and he'd been on the board prior to that. So he does provide a very public face for Cherriots in the community. That's the large community of Salem, Kaiser, and all the unincorporated area in the urban growth boundary.
Any other comments? We're ready for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. And that completes all of our action items, and we're ready to move into the general manager's report.
Well, thank you, and I guess after that, thank you very much. I guess now's as good a time as any to say that on Monday I start my second 2-year term as the president of Garden, so I don't know how to say no, I guess.
I didn't realize that you were, I knew that you've been on the board for a long time, but
Yeah. So that free time after Salem City Club was over? Sorry.
She's
okay.
collecting your $8,000
I know,
already. So.
I know. Don't I know? Okay, let's get back to business. All right, so I do have a few items to report. So Director Thompson talked about APTA. I have sent some of this via email, but earlier this week at the federal level, the House did take floor action to approve the fiscal year 20 appropriations. It now goes to the Senate for their work. But the good news there is the House version, the bus and bus facility grant amount is slightly higher than the last 2 fiscal years, which, if you recall, was significantly higher than the authorized level. So the authorized level is what they authorized in the transportation bill, but each year you have to appropriate the money, and it's like about I can't remember the right amount, about $400 million higher than the authorized level. The good news for us is that means there's more money available for competitive grants, of which we just submitted our 2 applications, one for the 5 compressed natural gas buses, and the other is for technology to implement signal preemption on major corridors to help improve on-time performance and service reliability. The other piece of that is, so this past weekend I was at APTA events, attending the board meeting and the legislative steering committee and legislative committee meetings. The primary purpose of my attendance there was as a member of the legislative steering committee to advance the recommendations on behalf of APTA as an association for the next surface transportation bill. And by unanimous consent, the steering committee approved action to move it to the full legislative committee, which we then met on Sunday with the full legislative committee, and they approved the reauthorization recommendations. Unanimous vote. They now go to the board, the full APTA board in October, and with the passage there, then that becomes the official guiding document for reauthorization on behalf of the public transportation industry. I can tell you the top three recommendations. One is to fund a fully funded 6-year surface transportation bill, and also identify a new revenue source to offset the lagging revenues in the Highway Trust Fund. Priority number 2 is reestablish the 40-40-20 capital investment ratio between capital investment grants, state of good repair, and bus facility. So for many years, going back to the 80s until about 8 years ago, that ratio was intact, but with MAP 21, the bus facilities was reduced by 50%, and through the appropriation process, we've been trying to get it back to 20%. We're at about 14% now, but that is the number 2 priority of APTA, is to reestablish that ratio. I can tell you that didn't come very easily because there's a lot of competing organizations for that money. And then the third recommendation is for an establishment of a new mobility initiative to help shepherd in the changing public transportation landscape with new types of services. And there's a whole host of other recommendations, but those are the one-pager that we'll be leaving. So I'm very happy to see that, and that only bodes well for bus-only facilities or operations like us to have that capital investment ratio reallocated. Yesterday, Steve Dickey and I and several members of the marketing and communication staff were up in the city of Wilsonville. They had an event recognizing their 30 years of transit service, which we know is the SMARTS, the South Metro Area Regional Transit District, as well as the introduction of the first 2 electric buses in their fleet. And so they had the event at their transit center, which, as you know, the 1X, the northern terminus is there, and almost on cue, when the event started, the Cherriots bus drove right behind the podium. And then when Dwight Berkshire, who's the director up at SMART, was talking about the unique partnership that they have with us on the 1X, our Cherriots bus went right behind it again. So we got some good publicity for Wilsonville's events. But it was a nice event to recognize their 30 years of service and their introduction of their first 2 electric buses. And then the last thing I would say, we've mentioned it at the banquet, we mentioned it earlier in the little reception. I just would like to close by saying thank you to the 4 outgoing board members for your service to this community. You have made the transit riding public have an improved lifestyle and lifestyle options as the new service implements. And just know that you made a difference in this community, and it will be impacted and felt for years to come. And so thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess it's my turn now. And first thing, I forgot to hold it up during announcement, 72 days until Saturday service starts. So we're keeping the countdown going. This month I actually took, when you're retired, do you still take vacation? Well, I did. I was not home, so I guess that's vacation from being home. Went to the Great Lakes and visited some former colleagues that we've kept friends with when I was working in Michigan, and toured the Upper Peninsula. I lived in Michigan for 2 years and only got across the bridge and back, and this time we went up to Lake Superior, did the Sioux Locks and a number of other things, but did a little transit ride too. I was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and rode the Milwaukee streetcar, and all these new streetcar, 4 new streetcar lines in the last few months have started up in the United States. And one of the things that's interesting is there's billions of dollars of investment, in private investment, going into the corridors where these streetcar lines are being built. So it's something to consider as a transit option and something to build the local economy with. various things that I did, I met with one of our new board members just to have a chat, and I attended the demo forum. I attended 2 neighborhood association meetings. I attended the city with Alan. Alan made the presentation, and I went along to support him at the City View group. And another thing that I attended that was Western Oregon University has established a Salem campus. It's very small. I think they have 4 classrooms. But one of the things that is nice about them, and one of the reasons I went, is they are giving us a lot of publicity in the alumni magazine. They advertised this new double-page spread that I showed a month ago, and also on their brochure, and what they're telling people when they sign up for classes, that we have bus service that runs right by the facility, which is out on Pringle Road in the continuing education building out there. And so I like to support them because they support us, and I'm also a Western Oregon alum. And then I went to the Mid-Willamette COG Budget Committee meeting, and I attended 2 SCATS meetings as an observer, and I attended the Oregon Association of Rail and Transit Advocates in Portland. I'm served as a director on that organization, and I also attended the employee banquet, which was a very nice affair. So those are most of the things I did this month, and kept me quite busy. I might say I don't really want to take the last word this time, since we have retiring directors that will want to talk. But if you look up at this dais, I will be the only director sitting here tonight that will be sitting here next month. So we have 4 new directors sitting in the back of the room, and we welcome them aboard. It's sort of a bittersweet experience because I've worked with several of these people for over a decade. And Director Evans has not been on the board for that long, but I was on the OHOS board, and he was the president, and I was the vice president of the board. So we have worked together for over a decade on various boards, and it's going to be, we're losing a lot of institutional memory, but I know some of the new members coming on the board have background in transit too, so we're hoping that we can get them up to speed really fast. And with that, it's a bittersweet experience, but this is the sad goodbye, and we'll hope you'll be around to, especially on September 7th when we have all those buses running. So thank you. And I think I'm going to leave Marcia till last and Jerry next to last, because Marcia always wants the last word. But I'll call on Director Lincoln first.
Okay. Other than the regular board meeting and work session, I also attended the demo forum, and attended the MWAC meeting as an observer, and 2 SCATS meetings since our last board meeting. So should I go ahead and report on the SCATS meetings now? The May 28th SCATS meeting, we did pass the long-term regional transportation system plan, the 20-year, almost 30-year plan. There was some discussion and comments about the lack of any mention of or attention in the plan paid to the effects of effects of the transportation system on climate change. But the plan passed with some hope that that issue would be included in updates of the plan. There were also some amendments to the SCATS 2018-2023 Transportation Improvement Program, which included moving some funds that did not get spent, transit district funds that did not get spent in the last TIP into the new TIP. It's a kind of a procedural issue that needs to be done. If we don't spend the money, you have to put it into the new plan. There also approved a letter of support for Cherriots' application for transportation growth management funds. The TGM funds we're going to be using here at the Transit District to update our existing 20-year long-range transit development plan, and we asked the SCATS committee to support that plan in our application to ODOT. So that was most of the business in the May SCATS meeting. And the one that was just on this Tuesday, the SCATS committee is also approving the current, or the next fiscal year 2021 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program. They have rolling transportation improvement programs in order to plan far enough ahead for the funds to be allocated to projects that the different jurisdictions bring before the SCATS committee. And this is going to be a year-long process. The applications for projects in the next transportation improvement program were due on Friday. We've got a preliminary list of projects that each jurisdiction has asked the SCATS committee to prioritize for the federal funds that are available to this district. And included in that is $5,400,000 plus to Salem Mass Transit District for a fixed route bus replacement. So we'll see how that goes over the next year. It won't be till next May to actually adopt the final TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program. But we hope that the funds for that project for Cherriots will be included in the plan. Most likely it will be. The only other thing having to do with, we also had a discussion, Steve Dickey was there, and to talk about the South Salem Transit Center change of direction, because the SCATS had approved $350,000 to go towards building that South Salem Transit Center. And since we're kind of looking at other options now, we had to ask them if we could leave that money in and use it for the next phase of that project. And they approved that. And I believe that that's really all that has to do with the transit district.
Okay.
And the SCATS. But I did want to say one last thing. I don't want to take up too much time here, but to add to my comments earlier, it really has been an honor and a privilege to be on the Transit Board and to work with this board. I think we've always worked collegially and professionally, and it's been a great experience. Another kudo to Alan is he's assembled a great staff. It's been wonderful working with the staff, hardworking, competent, professional folks, and I think that there's just nothing but progress ahead for Cherriots. And for the new board members, thank you for offering to serve, and I look forward to seeing how things go in the next few months. Thank you for your willingness to volunteer. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Evans?
Yeah, this is in seniority, I see.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good. That's all right. Well, we're going to repeat the same things about staff. I really appreciate how things have gelled over the 8 years that I've served. I've seen people come and go. I thought when I first got here that this was a training ground for people who moved on to other things, and some did. But I think what we've done is Alan has narrowed it down to people who are committed and hardworking, and finally we have an accountant that can count. Bless you. And so with that, I spent the month healing, and so I appreciate my wife getting me to the employee banquet and home. And then I was able to make it to the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. It was held on Tuesday, June 18th. And I'll just briefly summarize what happened there. The committee received the following: a detailed presentation by Alan on the new board governance and the district's fiscal year 20 budget priorities, a presentation by staff on the upcoming service enhancements in September, an update presentation on proposed schedule designs, both paper schedules and a new shelter schedule. The input by the committee from their March meeting was invaluable in making those decisions. And then a staff report on the third quarter service performance. The committee was provided with an update on the progress of the customer education campaign and received some of the campaign items. I got one of those too. It was some really cool stuff, especially the earbuds that stretch. I'm using those already. And then the committee members discussed several service issues which they either encountered themselves or heard through the community stakeholders. Staff responded to committee members' concerns, and I know they were taking notes, and some folks were going to get back to them on what they had. That's a really valuable committee from the outside looking in, because as a board member, you're just there to listen. And I think for those people that serve on that committee, I'm really thankful that there are people out in the community that are willing to put their ear to the street and find out what's going on. And I know it's really helpful to the current board, and I hope that the new board coming in benefits from it too. Their next quarterly meeting, they took a tour of the Del Webb operations on the 20th of June, and it seemed like the members left really impressed with how it works out there, you know, the mechanical part and everything that goes into making the buses run. The next quarterly meeting is September 17th this year. That's it.
Thank you. Director Thoms?
My turn, huh? Well, I have to echo the same thing about staff. Directors and the managers that I've been involved with have all been top flight. And I'm sure that you're going to grow with the organization. And Alan, you want to keep Alan. Did I say that before? Yeah, okay. Anyway, I'm going to miss this. It's been a good ride, 20-year ride, and I really have grown personally from my experience with this group. And in my waning years, I'm still going to watch what you guys do, keep you in line. So I appreciate that. Anyway, this month I did attend the employee banquet, and that was nice. We got a nice little plaque, and met with the general manager, and I filled in for Bob at the COG board meeting, and they worked on the budget mostly. And we also evaluated the general manager, or the executive director over there at the same time. So it was a long meeting. You're lucky you missed that one. And went to neighborhood association meeting, and we talked mostly there about the Picksqueet property, which is the property across from our house on State Street, State and Cordon Road, and what's going to be there. And that was an interesting meeting, and talking about 650 houses across the street from us, and maybe some apartments across the street from us, and maybe some sort of commercial development across the street from us. So it should be interesting. I went to a SEDCOR meeting. We talked, it was dealing with financial planning, and I won't say any more about that. Probably the most interesting meeting that I went to was the Chamber Policy Committee meeting, where we talked about, either that or we ran down the PERS system, and being the only PERS retiree there, it was interesting to see what the other side thought. So, yeah, I attended the work session and the regular board meeting. But it's been a pleasure. I'm going to miss you all, and I'll still be around if you need anything. So that's it.
Thank you. And Director Kelley?
Okay, so I will start out with some of the report. Went to the work session, board meeting, the employee banquet, and then the Area Commission on Transportation, which was very interesting. Our first presentation was on the Center Street seismic upgrade. In the 2017 transportation bill, there was $60 million for seismic upgrading on the Center Street Bridge, and the consultant on the study of doing it, Stephen Drahota from HDR Engineering, had a presentation that went into the details on that, and there's a strong commitment from the department to get this project done, even if it has cost overruns from what is in House Bill 2017. Sonny Chicory, the region manager, was there because Lisa Nell, who is the area director for ODOT, had a family graduation to attend, and so he came and he made sure that we, in the Mid-Willamette Valley area, knew that ODOT considered this a project that needed to be completely done, and so they're going to find the financing for the additional amounts. And I'll make sure that I forward to Linda the slide presentation on that, because it would be interesting for all of the board members. We also had an Aurora Donald project update from Anna Henson and the alternates that they're looking at for improving the Aurora Donald intersection, especially on the west side of the freeway. If you've ever done it, it's very exciting to try to figure out how you do that. And they have major semi-trucks doing it at the same time. We have a new project manager in the area for overseeing construction projects, Vidal Francis, and we treated him well. He's new and he didn't have the sort of sense of humor that our prior project manager had, but he was very helpful in letting us know what was happening. I believe that he has 8 projects this summer to oversee in the Polk, Marion, and Yamhill County area, and one of them is, of course, the paving on I-5 between Salem and Woodburn. And I noticed in the alert that we were given that they were going to be moving southbound this week. So they're doing it in good stead, but it does cause delays. So now the people coming home from Portland are having a possibility of being tied up in the setup for the paving, but it really is following all along. And then we had just a little bit of a discussion on the projects that we submitted to ODOT from the area on the statewide transportation improvement fund, the discretionary. And I don't think they've made a decision on that, or if they did, I don't think they made it at the last meeting.
No, not yet. That's
So,
the fall.
and the only other thing of interest sort of that comes along with that is there will be a phone call meeting of the Oregon Transportation Commission to announce their selection for a temporary deputy director to replace Matt Garrett, who is leaving ODOT. He's the director of ODOT, top of everything. He has been there for 13 years, I believe, as the director, and was with ODOT for 22 years, and his last day is tomorrow. So they are doing a nationwide search and hope to have someone in place by September, but the replacement will be named on Monday. Last night, at an event that I didn't list on what I attended, I went to an event for St. Francis Shelter, and it was sort of bittersweet because the first person I ran into at the event was Kent Aldridge, the former mayor of Salem, who appointed me to a transit task force in 1978 because the city was operating the buses, and they were operating buses outside the city to like Chemeketa and to other places. But the city taxpayers, the city of Salem taxpayers, were paying for it. There was not a city of Kaiser at that point, so the rest of it was all unincorporated. And so he was there, and so we reminisced about my getting appointed to that committee because I told him that if there was anything that was related to transit, that's what I would like to do, because he was looking for young people. This is 1978. I was young then. So it's sort of a full circuit coming back 30 years later, but having the involvement in this area's transportation has been really important to me. I started riding buses in Bend, Oregon to go to my dance lessons when I was in the 2nd grade. And I grew up in Portland in a family without a car. And I know how important good public transportation can be to family budgets. And I am really looking forward to Salem being able to have that with the Saturday service. So after 30 years, we've got it back. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to miss all of you and hope you will be back for some of our events. And it's, as I say, it's a kind of bittersweet evening. Is there any other comments anybody would like to make? If not, we are adjourned.